Joseph went there to Bethlehem to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him. Betrothed is another translation. It was nearly marriage in Jewish customs of the time, but it wasn't entirely marriage. We get the emphasis that they're at this stage, and Luke then kind of relies on our having read the chapter before and heard the whole conversation between Mary and the angel Gabriel. So, be married to him. She was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths, and I'll get back to that in a second, and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. Now, at a couple of places in our time together, we're going to violate the Christmas pageant that you may either have seen or may be going to see. We're going to at least run up against some incongruity between the text and what comes out in the pageant, in the classic Christmas pageant. I was thinking the other day about 2020, when we were all in COVID lockdowns, or at least late in COVID lockdowns, when Advent came. And you may remember there were Zoom pageants. I don't know how your church did it, but there were Zoom pageants, and I got fascinated by it. So I looked up as many as I could find. And you had these brilliant, creative ways of reproducing the pageant on a year when all odds were against you getting that done. And maybe some of you were part of planning that kind of pageant. I thought it was brilliant and heroic that people carried on the tradition. So I have nothing against pageants. We should note, though, that the translation that makes an innkeeper part of the cast, which is King James Version and others, the translations that make an innkeeper part of the cast have been sort of transitioned into ones like this, where it's a guest room and not a separate inn that Luke seems to be picturing. Kataluma is the Greek word, and it can mean a stopping place where people gather, like an inn, but it's more often, and even within the Gospel of Luke, it means, in chapter 21 of Luke, it means an upper room, so a guest room. That was the more common usage. So what's pictured here is there weren't any more rooms for them at the ancestral houses, at the ancestral homes. David's kin didn't have any room. And so Mary had to give birth where the family animals would have gathered for their food, right? So you picture an ancient architecture that includes a place where animals could eat within the structure of the house. That's what is more likely what happened. So we don't have to have an ornery innkeeper shaking a finger in this pageant, because it's more likely the people tried to put them up but didn't have space, and in the urgency of the moment, they chose the nearest place where a baby could be laid. All right. So this is the birth itself that comes in a whisper. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. Now, you remember, you have probably heard the phrase swaddling clothes. That's King James, and it also gets done in other translations that are impacted by King James Version. But what we should picture are these cloth strips that were the custom of ancient baby wrapping in Judaism and in the region, and they did it in order to get the arms and legs to grow in properly. They wrapped them in certain ways. When Liz and I went to our Lamaze class, they taught us how to wrap a baby like a burrito. I like the strips of cloth better. They keep the shoulders wide. But what I want to notice now is that these are strips of cloth that would be used for births, Also for burials. We'll get back to that. We may have here the shadow of the cross being cast over the manger. That is a theme in a lot of Christian theology. We'll get back to a parallel later that might indicate this. But for now, swaddling clothes are strips of cloth that would have helped the baby be more kind of in line physically. It was an attempt to make the baby's comfort and also gear them toward proper growth